What I love about Reacher is he's off the grid. He's a character that really has his own moral code.
Reacher?
He has a great sense of responsibility and taking care of the people that can't take care of themselves, and he gets drawn into these stories. He is a wanderer. He travels.
I had in mind the idea of a guy who had had this incredibly dislocated life as a military brat and then a military officer, then coming back to civilian life, or in fact, in his case, coming to civilian life for the first time ever. But Reacher never settled down, you know, he never found something to do, so he's still in that first year, essentially. He's still on the road, still wandering, still seeing what he never had time to see before.
The idea that this man is without a master, he is in pursuit of justice. He is in pursuit of righting wrongs, and it is justice as he sees it fit, not as even the law might dictate.
Remember, you wanted this.
We all wish we could be Jack Reacher. There's no guilt. Whether it's on the right side of the law or the wrong side of the law, Reacher always does the right thing.
All of us felt that the first movie really introduced the character in a strong way, but that there was more that we could reveal about his backstory, that, you know, there could be at least some more internal experience of this person and what his choices have been in life.
When it became clear that we were making a second movie, and that's never assured, Chris McQuarrie, who's also producing the movie, and I went to Tom's house, and I took all the books, like 18 of the books, and I lined them up on his patio. And I took out one shot and put it in the back of the box, and we had just done that book. And we went through each one of Lee Child's books, because we've all read them, talking about positives and negatives and what would be hard, and do you want to shoot in snow, do you don't? What is attractive and tough on a movie basis from each book? And that was a delight.
The books are not sequential. You know, the books are completely standalone adventures. So you don't have to have read any of the previous books to understand this book. And so it was very logical that they could just look at them all and pick out the one they wanted.
Never Go Back, which came out only 2 years ago, was attractive for a couple different reasons. One, it's actually the best reviewed book of all of them. Now, these books have gotten fantastic reviews, but this one even ended up on the New York Times list of 10 best books at the end of 2014. It's that sort of beloved. Secondly, the characters of Susan Turner and Reacher's dilemma with the character of Samantha. Once, you know, Tom and I read that novel, those two characters afford us an opportunity to explore Jack Reacher in a way that is rare. I'd like to say we sort of debated about many different novels, but it was a pretty easy choice.
This is the second film that I made with Ed Zwick, someone who I greatly admire. I think he's such a fine, fine filmmaker. We made Last Samurai together, and it was such a privilege to be able to make that movie, and for me a privilege to be able to work with him again and have this kind of collaboration in this kind of movie with him. You know, he's someone who really, I think, understands a character like Reacher and really wanted to go in and embrace this world, and does it beautifully.
It's a fun genre that I felt has the possibility of being that and more, and yet had never done anything in that genre. I've obviously done things that have a lot of action. I've done things that are about characters and deep relationships, but never combined them. And when Tom called and said, would you be interested? My first response was, well, gee, I've never done a sequel before. I've never done a franchise. It's not anything that I might necessarily be inclined to think of doing. And he said, well, just read the book. And I did. And I saw within it the possibility of doing something that I've always wanted to do, which is to say, work in that genre and yet try to bring to it things that interest me just as much in movies having to do with the relationships among people.
I think the reason they approached us was because this particular novel has more relationships in it than most of the Jack Reacher novels. You know, he's got this involvement with Susan Turner, he's got involvement with this girl who could be his daughter. So what's interesting is you take this character, this classic American loner, Jack Reacher, and you put him up against these people that he could love, that he could become connected to, and what's he going to do? You know, part of the enjoyment of this was watching this guy, you know, who's really so comfortable being by himself, sort of be with these people that he comes to care about.
Go.
Why does he get to have a phone?
Hold on. You need to be quiet. Okay, sorry. I'm excited about this next film to see what is it that the audience is going to respond to in this next phase as we carry on. With this story, we're going to take it off into a little area, you know, with Turner and with Sam, you know, this dysfunctional family on the road. And then we're still going to give them Reacher and the satisfying kind of action that we have. And also you're going to explore, you know, part of America. New Orleans is featured in this. So that's also very much a character in these films. It's also how do I play with audience expectations, try to exceed those expectations, and also, you know, challenge ourselves as storytellers.
We knew we wanted to do Never Go Back, the novel, but we inherited a problem. One of the things we liked most about this book is Jack Reacher travels to Washington, D.C. to meet Susan Turner. Susan Turner's a major in the United States Army and has Reacher's old job. Now, the problem we inherited is their conversation started in a book called 61 Hours.
The initial contact between Reacher and Turner happens, I think, 2 books earlier, where he talks to her on the phone. And typical of Reacher, he just likes the sound of her voice. There's something intriguing. She's got this husky, sexy voice on the phone. And, you know, Reacher's got to be somewhere, got to be doing something. So he thinks, you know what, I'm going to go and take her out to dinner. Just like that.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe I owe you dinner for what you did.
Dinner? Well, take you.
He's 5,000 miles away or something, and he thinks, I'm going to go and take her to dinner. So then for 2 books, he's trying to get to Virginia to take her out to dinner. And he doesn't make it until the start of this book.
The idea was to pick up Reacher literally at the conclusion of another story, the likes of which you hadn't seen, but he's in res in some way. But mostly so as to establish his relationship with Susan Turner, Major Turner. So it was incumbent on us to figure out a way to, in brief, because it's only the sort of prologue, to establish that phone relationship and to suggest that that's how this whole, you know, ball begins spinning.
Well, it's nice to finally speak.
Thanks for tipping us off to that sheriff.
No, I wanted to thank you for helping me out of a tight spot.
Oh, isn't that what Army folks do for each other, Major?
Ex-major.
Oh, once a major, always a major.
For the movie, they had to compress that into the opening sequence, which I think they did very well. I mean, you really get the feeling that it's not going to be the end of the world if he doesn't get there, but he really wants to get there, and it, you know, it really comes across.
What follows is, you know, this story that he's drawn into, and really it's never go back. You know, he should not have gone back. And he gets drawn into this story to really work with her and help her out of a situation.
We're leaving enough shit over there now to start another war. Air Source was selling off the weapons instead of bringing them back to the States.
You can do all the research you want, and you still cannot make this stuff up. You know, there are things in this movie that people are going to say, oh, you know, surely that doesn't happen, does it? You know, evil corporations and this and that. Actually, yeah, it does happen. And what I've learned as a book writer is that the stuff that you feel is pushing it just a little bit is absolutely normal. It exists somewhere.
The way that I work on a story is we're just constantly going over it. You know, you have it, you've got the script, you're just constantly going through it, making sure that you leave no stone unturned.
We had worked with Tom before on Last Samurai, and the thing I love about working with Tom is that, first of all, he has no vanity when you're talking about script. He's not thinking about what's going to make his character look good or anything that many actors think about. He's only thinking about what's going to make this a great movie. And all of his efforts are about how can every piece of this pay off and how can you achieve the objectives you want to achieve in this movie.
He was very sensitive to the adaptation, but also bold about it, in as much as exactly like I would want him to do. And I remember having a conversation with him right at the beginning, saying, do whatever you need to do, because I firmly believe a movie is different from a book. It has different requirements, and therefore Ed needed to have the emotional freedom to do whatever he needed to do.
Lee's a force of nature. I mean, the fact that he has, not just created this genre, but has been so prolific, and yet prolific in this way that has managed to maintain audiences' interest over, so many books. I think that's because there's something in these books that is a little bit of an anthology. It's not the same story over and over. Lee, because he has such an avid curiosity about the world and about different situations, has managed to keep this going and keep it interesting each time.
People just want a great story where people feel like there's someone who's just outside of the system, righting wrongs. And it's as simple as that, It is a classic, iconic character that Lee Child has created. There's all these wonderful characters that move in and out of the film and in and out of his books. Each one is a different adventure, yet it's incredibly satisfying, I think, for an audience.
I think it's very important for Tom, as an actor, to not make this a movie in which you see Ethan Hunt in a different story. He really wanted to create a very different character, and this speaks to what he's done in this movie particularly. I feel it to be a deep and interesting performance. He wanted this franchise to be different in every way.
We always want to stay true to Jack Reacher, and one of the sort of untouchable traits is there isn't a tremendous amount of introspection or character searching that Reacher does. Lee created the character specifically to be a man of action, not a man of tremendous internal world. But in this movie, now that we've introduced the character, we're able to explore more about what makes him tick. And Reacher's own feelings about his life, his destiny, the kind of life that he hasn't had, as represented in this movie by Samantha, the kind of love life and possible relationship that he's really never had, which he sees in a woman like Turner. And we're able to do all that now that we firmly set the character up in a franchise.
But straight into it.
Great.
Okay.
And how's the chin here in this?
Is this really good? I'm watching you. That's why I'm having
Okay,
to keep
great.
head up.
Head up here.
I'm checking the monitor. We'll go one more time. And action.
Major Turner, please.
One moment, please.
This is Turner.
Major S. Turner.
The thing about Reacher that very few people get, and which is what I really think is great about the interplay between Tom Cruise and Kobe Smulders, is Reacher is a guy profoundly happy with solitude, but worried about being lonely. He is a lonely guy, and therefore if he gets the chance to this random hookup, this random opportunity, he's going to take it. Not just because he fancies having dinner with a good-looking woman. He is always trying to make a connection. And of course, most of the time it doesn't work, but the instinct is still there.
When you coming to DC?
I'll get there eventually.
Well, then I won't hold my breath.
What pulls Reacher back in is he was just interested in her. He likes the sound of her voice. Reacher is a character, when you read his books, he likes strong women. Kobe Smulders is perfectly cast for this. Someone who has the intelligence and the beauty and the power on screen. When you see her, I believe that she's in the military. You believe she has that kind of intelligence and that type of charm. I thought she was absolutely perfectly cast for it.
This is insane.
Does this mean dinner's off?
It was really cool. It was my first experience doing a movie that had a book where you could go to for so much of the character's backstory and to read how these two characters related to each other. Working with Tom has truly been amazing. He's such a great performer, but he knows stories and he knows film so well. He is literally like a walking film encyclopedia. And also, this is his second time playing this character, so he knows Reacher so well that it's been just incredibly helpful and It's also been a lot of fun.
The chemistry with Tom and Kobe is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. They're both amazing at what they do, but there's a real chemistry there. It's not just on the screen, it's off the screen too. It's genuine. They joke with each other, they laugh, they giggle, they help each other, they collaborate with each other.
The relationship between Reacher and Turner is fun, and there's a lot to explore there. But I would say the heart and soul of the movie is really Reacher and Samantha.
Ready and roll sound. Mark.
You're always thinking of that character as the artful dodger. You know, that's what Ed and I talked about. It was like, she's the artful dodger. And someone who can steal, who's very clever, street smart, yet she has a kindness.
It's my first day of filming with Tom. I'm really excited. But I mean, I've been rehearsing with him and it's gone really well. He's super cool and a lot of fun. So I'm not really nervous about this being my first day of filming, because I know it's gonna go well. Yeah, but I'm excited. First day.
Ready? Background. And camera.
Danica blew us away in her audition because there's a restlessness about her. She brings a sense of humor, but she also brings a sense of indignance, of anger at her situation in the world, of resentment, everything that any of us who have teenagers will recognize pretty clearly. And she'll break your heart.
So anyway, I'm just thinking that this shot should be, as she's sort of walking out, we sort of counter and just follow her right through there. And what I want, you know, because we're going to do two sizes of Tom, this is the moment when he's really, for the first time, really getting to look at her, seeing her, okay?
We loved writing Samantha. First of all, the idea, of course, is that he doesn't know if Samantha is his daughter or not. So what you're playing on is he's looking at her. Even if you don't see it in the scenes, you just know that character is looking at her going, is that my daughter? And so what does that mean? He's looking at her behavior. It's like early in the film, she busts him. He's following her. He's pretty good at following people. She figures out that he's following her. It's like she has a natural ability to lose herself, to handle situations. You know, this is part of playing on, well, is she the daughter or is she not the daughter? Because she's a really capable young person.
If you're looking for my mom, I don't live with her.
Who do you live with?
I read the novel, Never Go Back, and of course about halfway through it, I was like, there's no Hunter, where's my character? Because the Hunter was created, the character for this film.
What we didn't have in the first movie is we didn't have a singular villain that the audience looks at and thinks, this guy could beat Jack Reacher, or this guy is as smart as Jack Reacher. It was sort of bifurcated between Werner Herzog and Jai Courtney. And in this movie, we wanted to have Jack Reacher meet his match.
Attorney-client privilege goes back to the earliest days of English common law. It means that Major Turner told you in confidence a great deal about what she learned from her investigation in Afghanistan.
You know, and each movie's different. Each story needs a different kind of opponent. You want part of drama is you need, you know, that counter intention. You need the obstacles. And the bigger the obstacles, the more powerful the story is. Ed said, man, you gotta look at this actor. He's got great power, and what he did in terms of playing that character, he's just, you know, it's just so weirdly off-center.
We talked for 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a very long time, as you were about to learn.
Patrick is physically really capable. He's great looking, he's articulate, he's younger than Tom, which I think sets up an interesting dynamic too, that here's this younger guy coming after him. And I'm always drawn to trained actors. I am, you know, and he comes out of Juilliard, he can do classical theater, and the idea that he brings that into a role of a villain is just a great, you know, opportunity.
Now you're gonna tell me what's going on. Or the first chance I get, I'm gonna scream or grab a policeman.
We really play with the metaphor of the kind of family road movie. The idea that these three people are the least likely people ever to form this little immediate surrogate family. And yet they're forced to as they go on the road to try to solve this.
I feel sick.
Put your head out the window.
The relationship between Reacher and who he thinks is his daughter, Samantha, you know, you're throwing a child into the equation. And not only just a child, but a child that he didn't know about and now is sort of beginning to become an adult herself. It's just an entirely new relationship for him to try to figure out.
How long have you been drawing?
I don't know. Why?
Just asking.
They suck.
Whatever you say.
I said to Tom at one point, this is a story about a man who can handle anything that anyone could throw at him except a 15-year-old girl.
There.
I can't eat. I'm pumping adrenaline.
And it does not understand teenagers, you know, like he's looking at her like, what? I don't get it. You know, he's used to talking to the military, you know. Do you want to live? Do you? Certain things he just doesn't understand how to quite speak with her. So it made for really fun moments.
The coolest thing about being in a Tom Cruise movie is literally everything. I honestly, I mean, I knew I'd have fun doing this because I'm doing what I love, but like, I didn't think I would have as much fun as I'm having. I mean, we're just like, every single day on set, you know, we're doing the scenes, but then we're just goofing off, you know, when we're not filming, we're just having the best time. Tom, he's awesome. I mean, like on set sometimes, like on Mondays, you know, the energy is, you know, kind of low because it's a work weekend, first day back, and it's like 6 a.m. He'll come in and be like, guess what, guys? We're making a movie. And he just gets people pumped up. It's fun. But I have learned so much from working with Tom. I mean, he's an excellent teacher. From the beginning, he kind of took me under his wing, I guess you can say, and I came to set a few times when I wasn't working, just that way, you know, I could watch, you know, the big action scenes, you know, to see the angles and lighting and camera and all of that side of filming, because I don't get to experience that.
See how that changes?
But he really makes sure that I'm learning firsthand, which is awesome. You know, I'm learning from the best.
Fellas?
If anything, Reacher is more kick-ass in this movie than he was in the first movie. He's tougher, he does cooler things, there's a higher body count, but at the same time, there are these connections with these two people.
Is he all right?
Yeah, I think so. Reacher, look here.
Right here.
It's that kind of relationship where, as you're looking at it, you want the audience to yearn for the three of them to be together, to yearn and want for the, you know, Reacher and Sam to be together.
The reason why Turner and Reacher are not working is because they're different. I think that Reacher has always respected women.
Tom?
He's always liked women. I don't think that that's the issue. I think that the issue is him and his personality and him just not being able to, you know, commit himself to that kind of life.
You know, it's funny. You came here looking for one girl and you ended up with another.
Danica, it's been really fun seeing her sort of progress through this movie, and I think that she has these beautiful moments in the film where she gets to be vulnerable. It's really quite tragic because her character in the film really does want him to be her father and really secretly hopes for that.
See that woman over there? The waitress who's refilled your coffee 3 times? That's her.
The Samantha Reacher thing, it sort of grows on you. You don't really realize that that's what this whole story is going to be. It just gets deeper and deeper. So that by the end, at least when I've seen it with audiences, it becomes quite emotional.
just gonna go.
That's right.
Don't you ever get lonely?
Sometimes.
When I read the books, I always felt they would make great films.
Sometimes.
You know, he's a character in the classic sense of who arrives to town, gets drawn into these situations and has to make those decisions, those tough decisions that sometimes for other people they can't make, and they can't see it the way that he does. So I think it's really, just as an actor, a very fun character to play, challenging to play, and I think enormously entertaining for an audience. The reason I started producing films is I just love movies, and it's puts me in a position where I'm just making the films that I want and having the input of bringing the teams together and really working with different filmmakers and helping them out, and also, of course, they help me and I learn.
Reacher's a quintessential American hero, and it gives us a chance, hopefully in every movie that we make, to show a different part of America to film-going audiences.
It's a road movie, and this movie is modestly budgeted, so we couldn't go to all these places, so we had to figure out ways. We're lucky enough in that places in Louisiana, Baton Rouge, and even New Orleans itself have a certain amount of architecture, and then with set extensions and some second unit of DC, we were able to create that, but it's not just that place. It's going to places along the way.
I'd say we had close to 100 different locations on this movie. The key to being efficient financially on a movie such as this that goes to a lot of different places is try to contain it. Trying to get the most out of locations and trying to get multiple sets out of one place without spending time moving the company. So this enables us to really get a lot of bang for our buck and put the money on the screen.
Duplicating the Midwest was challenging. We really wanted to feel like we were in isolated Oklahoma or anywhere like that. It was trying to find something that was of age, that hadn't been knocked down or torn down yet. The motels and the diner was a tough one to find. We saw tons and tons of diners everywhere. They've all been gentrified, and it's sort of like Johnny Rockets, and that's not Jack Reacher. Elston Howard and I, the location manager, we finally drove by this little dilapidated place that was boarded up, and it still had the old retro sign outside, but no one had eaten there in years, and I was like, stop the car. We stopped the car, and I was like, there's no way in the world they're gonna like this, but I think this is the one.
And action!
And when we went on the tech scout, Ed was perfect. It's perfect. We had to do quite a lot of work to it, but it worked out really well. When we were in DC, I looked for locations that had very large scale, very tall. It made everybody seem smaller in the frame because we're in the seat of power. The Customs House here gave us all of that. Beautiful. It was the original Customs House in New Orleans. I think it dated back to 1900. Polished marble floors, huge granite columns that were 30, 40 feet high. And we had long hallways that they could walk down. And juxtaposing that with the Midwest and New Orleans, it was fantastic. As a designer, you always look for little details that aren't in the forefront. Like the dent in Jack Reacher's desk that Major Turner sits at is like a small thing, but we actually did that. It wasn't scripted, but it was, for the Reacher fans.
We have filmed our prison sequence, which was our first couple of days of filming. It was about an hour and 15 minutes out toward the Gulf in some real isolated, brand new prison that is unoccupied, and we had the ability to actually film in a real prison without prisoners.
Tom is cool. He's absolutely great. He himself has been, working at such a high level for so long that you would automatically think you're stepping into a bunch of pressure. But, a good attitude on set starts from the top down.
Let me tell you why working with Tom Cruise as a filmmaker is fantastic, because it makes me look good. He's a perfectionist.
Is that back for far enough?
He's every bit as much as a producer as he is an actor. For Tom, he's always looking to get the best out of every element of the movie, and it shows. It shows in all of his movies.
He comes in, he speaks to everybody. You know, he's very kind to everyone, very, very gracious, and he makes sure that everyone's taken care of. And in a scene, he understands it's not about him, it's about the scene, so he's a very giving actor as well, you know. If it's, you know, your particular take or your coverage or whatever, he's like, hey, look, what do you need? You know, let's make this work.
He and Ed are of the same mind, and what makes it really a pleasure for me is just seeing how the two of them really are on the same page.
Ed is great with actors. He's tremendous with them, and in the same way, like anything, a story, I want to care about the characters. I want to, you want to get invested in the characters. You look at the movies that he makes, these epic films, they're very personal. He's a very personal filmmaker, and he looks and finds and mines these wonderful moments, and we do it together.
Food truck.
DC is the seat of the 110th, and the idea of having to do a chase through DC, you know, was a challenge, obviously. It was really about making their escape plausible and yet iconic at the same time, and looking at maps and saying if they went from here to here, what would they see behind them, and then trying to design it in such a way as to be, you know, exciting.
So the camera package weighs 23 pounds.
In terms of the height, you saw the height of the. Have you seen
crane,
what the
yeah.
crane is doing?
Yeah.
So as if it's about that height, a little higher, you let them come into your frame and then track them like that.
Got it. Perfect.
Okay.
We can do that.
All right, drone's going up.
We actually are going to be using a lot of digital sets. We found a very good location here, the Museum of Art on the other side of town, that was very close in scale, but not quite as big a scale as the National Mall is in DC. So we use a lot of digital environments for them to run through it. It'll all be composited together.
We did do some shooting in Washington, D.C. We did a bunch of aerial stuff, and we did some plates with some visual effects. But for the most part, when the film is put together, it will be totally believable that we were in Washington, D.C.
Is there still an internet cafe around here?
Pennsylvania, North Street.
Okay, take us there, please.
Whenever one makes a movie adaptation of a book, you worry about how the author might feel. And it was really gratifying to have him not just come and be part of the reading and talk about the script, but also then even be part of the movie. Because, you know, I think he is as important to his fans now as even is the character of Reacher.
It's a really smart little cameo that carries on from the cameo I did in the first movie. In the first movie, I was a cop in a police station where he is getting out after a night in jail. And I kind of look at him a little skeptically, as if to judge him. And in this movie, I play a TSA officer.
D-Mark. D-Mark.
And background.
Reacher, Tom Cruise, is coming through the airport with a phony ID. So once again, I'm kind of judging him. I'm looking at him, looking at the ID and saying, yeah, you're okay.
Action.
And it's going to be a running joke, I hope, that we do in every single movie. Enjoy your flight.
Hello, handsome.
That won't be the truth.
That's good. Now, is this easier than writing books or what?
It's a little better, yes. You're the best.
Pleasure. Nice to meet you.
Believe it or not, the airport was really tough. You're dealing with the FAA, you're dealing with Homeland Security. They were all great. All of that was very smooth. We had a whole wing of the airport, a whole terminal area that had been shut off and was in non-use, basically. Seems simple to bring an airport back to life. It's not. There's so much detail. That was actually a very tough location for us. A lot of man hours, a lot of work went into it.
You coming to New Orleans?
I'm thinking about it.
Look me up.
I will.
You know, it's much more arduous than writing. And I'm so struck by that whenever I'm here that I write something, it takes me like a minute to write it and costs me $0 to put it down, just a couple of lines. But you guys have got to make it happen physically in the physical real world with, you know, extras and sets and a huge, huge, enormous industrial operation with hundreds and hundreds of people. It's a weird disconnect.
Oh, I never heard of no MP.
Sergeants Murkovich and Sibeli. Murkovich had a 6-year-old daughter. Sibeli's wife is pregnant with their first. Now, you're gonna tell me what happened.
Will kill me.
She'll kill you.
Her sources running truck convoys out of bag room. We just ran security for the base.
The great thing about New Orleans and Louisiana, there's a variety of looks that we can create. We even have a place to cheat as Afghanistan in a desert.
Believe it or not, Afghanistan is only 2.5 hours from here, and it's in a town called Francisville. A lot of people have shot there before. It's basically a sand pit. It used to be a gravel pit, I guess, and what's left is the sand. You can move the sand around, you can do whatever you want, and that's sort of what we did. And they're shooting it right now in 2nd unit, and it looks fantastic. I was surprised. The first time I saw it, it was 108 degrees, and I was not happy about it. But now it's about 55, and it's all good.
It's a leg head. It's like this. I want all that acting. Don't like stuntman rushing. It's like you've been shot. It's like sell the hit. As you come to help, don't you stop pulling him. I want to feel all these guys. I want to feel a lot of soldiers coming to rescue. Absolutely. You know what I mean?
We're going to see the helicopter land. We're going to see our soldiers coming off. Where they're going to be firing weapons. There's going to be a mortar right about where you guys are standing that's going to go off. We're also going to have soldiers in the foreground here firing guns.
It's always hard to create the MacGuffin, who is the bad guy in this story, because in some sense, often that's the least interesting part of the story, because, okay, you don't have time to really evaluate what they're doing. And I think we took advantage of something that I think people in the culture understand right now is happening in Afghanistan, having to do with contractors, having to do with weapons and the drawdown, and even having to do with drugs. And I think that it's a little bit of shorthand at times to trade on something that's in the culture and let that sort of ennoble your antagonist.
There's very little oversight over these companies. And as we've seen with Blackwater and other companies, sometimes bad stuff happens because it's not part of the normal military command structure. And a lot of the funds that go into them are black funds that we can't really follow.
Good. Cut.
Sam.
Reacher, it's him. He's here.
What?
At the hotel. Hurry. Reacher.
Sam, listen to me. Sam. Sam?
Tom, in terms of the stunts, I mean, he's not like a stunt person. He can do all of these things by now. He is very highly trained, and he drives really well. We've been doing a lot of stunt driving, and he's a really good driver, and it's very fun to sit in the passenger seat. It's also quite terrifying, but in kind of like you're on a Canadian roller coaster kind of way, meaning like you don't really know if it's gonna stay on the tracks or not because it's been there since the 70s. So it's kind of scary, but it's also kind of exciting, and you're getting kind of jerked around a lot, but you know in the end it's probably gonna be okay.
That's fun. I love driving the cars like that. Wade and Ed and everyone know it's like, okay. Just, you know, we have a lot of fun doing that stuff. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Stand by, ready, and action, action!
Mission is wonderfully lavish. You know, when I think of those set pieces that Chris and Tom did in the most recent one, whether it's the Opera House or Underwater, it's a signature of those movies.
There you go. Another one, that one's better.
And I think what we're going for is something that maybe owes a little bit more to either classic film or even the 1970s film, movies like Bullet or the John Frankenheimer movies, in which the action is grounded and the action is of character in a very specific way.
Good.
My first meeting with Tom explained to me how he likes to do stunts and how he likes to prepare for stunts and the time and preparation that's put into the stunts, starting with fight sequences to car sequences to wire work and everything else. And he made it really clear to me what he needed, you know, to make it work. And he told me point blank that as long as we did that he promised me that we would save a tremendous amount of time on the day of shooting. And he was absolutely right. Everything that we have done on film, we are shooting film, was rehearsed prior to. So we knew exactly what was going to happen. The car stunt we did tonight, we closed off a section of the quarter on a Sunday afternoon, and we brought Tom in to actually rehearse it.
You'll go past our cameras because I wanted to devote all the cameras to get this right.
Yep.
And then I wanted to jump ahead to you bouncing over, going through the bushes, coming to a good hard stop and getting out of the car and running.
Perfect.
Do that as a separate piece, and then I'll just bring them together.
I'm going to take it, we're going to try to take it sideways, so I'm going to be pointing the nose here.
So on this rehearsal,
my windshield, it's not my fault.
Exactly.
You got fair warning.
Just sign, guys, and just sign here, here, and here.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing that you just want to watch for is the side. Yes. So just be a little strong and cool.
You know, we sat down and worked together on formulating a plan to basically start from the beginning and really work on drifting and driving so that he is consistently on his mark every take, which makes it safe and also means we can put more people around him, move the cameras closer and capture more.
Yeah, and you see something, it's like backing up, and it's like getting away, yeah?
And that's how every stunt and every fight and every bit of action has been approached on this movie. And it might be somewhat of an investment in preparation, but it paid dividends in the shooting. The fact we're in, week 8 right now, and we're on schedule, is a testament to that, because this has been non-stop action.
Like you can see tonight, I did one sort of test afternoon with him and put him at number 1. I tell him what we need to do and what marks to watch for. He acknowledges straight away and you know it's gone in.
Ready and action!
take him out and put a stunt guy in to do it because he wouldn't do it any differently.
That's okay.
So you might as well have the actor. You can get the camera right in there and film, and you got no cuts. And again, we're staying with the character and we're staying with the story and the emotion of the chase. We're not cutting to a stunt guy and then cutting back to an actor. The audiences are very aware of that these days.
Camera set, ready, and action.
How was that, Kobe?
That was awesome.
That was fun.
New Orleans is a beautiful city. It holds a lot of magic, intrigue. It's a very interesting city. You know, I haven't shot there since Interview with the Vampire when we did that there. And to go back to this city again and see just the history that it has and the diversity, I think visually this film really celebrates that. And it's just a cool city, very unique and beautiful city.
She's not in the hotel. She's in the street.
How do you know?
Because that's what I would do.
I think if you're in New Orleans, you're going to shoot New Orleans proper, the story's going to take you to the French Quarter as it takes all of us who come here. So it's a lot of fun, and nobody's shot the Quarter like this, and ever.
We wanted something classic for that third act. And when Marshall and I realized when we'd be shooting, I began to look, go down to New Orleans, read about New Orleans, and I realized there was this thing that happens at Halloween, which is so perfect. It's one thing to write that, and quite another thing to figure out just how to do that.
Shooting in any city in America for multiple days, never mind multiple nights, all night, is very, very challenging because you're intruding on people's lives, you're intruding on people's residencies, and it had to be handled very carefully. And as a result, we've had a very, very successful shoot.
Do you have her?
Treasure Street, Lafitte Hotel.
I guess once you see her go in there.
When you showed up to set, it felt like you were on a set. And then you were like, wait, no, somebody's in there. Like, that's somebody's home.
To accomplish something like that is really miraculous, because I've done some tough things. This wasn't necessarily bombs going off and automatic weapons, but in some curious way just as hard, because to have that many people in that small a place, in that wild a place, because the French Quarter never really sleeps, and to try to carve out your own reality in the midst of a crazy reality anyway was a real challenge.
No need to review.
Oh.
Let's move on.
All right.
We got it. Check the gate.
Okay.
When I first met with Ed Zwick interviewing for the job, I'd showed him images of parades throughout the world where they had skeletons that people carried and big, large voodoo heads and stuff like that. He goes, that's exactly what I want, is her to be running into this. It's almost Fellini-esque. It's these images that just come at you. One of my art directors found a local crew, and they created these heads for us, and they were beautiful. And they actually wore them in the parade, and that's sort of how we achieved that.
Then, in terms of general extras, there's a pool of people in New Orleans that are still excited about the movie business and will go out of the way to become a part of it. 400 or 500 people a night, 5 nights, all night long. And because this is a film that took place in New Orleans, it adds to the pride that the people have.
Somebody told me it's not very hard to get people to dress up for a parade in New Orleans. And everybody seems to have a whole closet full of costumes. And there are more sort of costume shops and wig shops and mask places everywhere. So when we asked people to come dressed, they went all out.
Some people, they're not even extras. They just show up in the scene. They're dressed up for a night out on Bourbon Street, and they just decide to join the filming for a little while, So
we're in their city. We're guests.
Exactly.
We're in their home. They're welcome to join.
That's part of the spirit.
It was incredible. It's truly like, if you wrote down when I'm like 7 years old and you said, if I could give you as much money as you want, what do you want to do right now? I'd be like, I want to chase some bad guys or who I think is the bad guy, with a gun, in full dress up, in the middle of the night, shooting a movie with Tom Cruise. It's like a joke.
Running through the French Quarter during all of the parade madness was insane. It was so much fun.
It was so cold on a few of those days. We had 450 backgrounds, so I can't imagine how cold those backgrounds were, but they were all game. I mean, they were so happy to be a part of it. Everybody was super excited, and they showed up every day with the same amount of energy and pretended to be partying on the side of a street in a balcony. It's exhausting.
In making a film, we need the cooperation and the help of the cities. And my films, you know, I travel around a lot. I've spent most of my life in out of a suitcase in rented homes and hotels. I love it, and I'm growing up on sound stages and mixing rooms. When I make films, I like to celebrate the landscape and the geography and the culture of those places. So having that kind of experience where the city embraces the filmmakers, they gave us the quarter to be able to shoot this. That was nice. I really appreciate that, because I want to represent their city well, and because I love it. That's why I'm shooting there, and I think we did so, and I really appreciate all of their help. Jack Reacher's an analog character in a digital age. He's off the grid. He's someone who goes by his own rules, yet he's someone that has very high morals. The way Reacher is that he sometimes is forced to have to deal with people in a physical manner, and he uses the least amount of effort and the greatest amount of force to be able to stop these bad people. And I always tell people when we start approaching it, he's a bull and he's just gonna go through you.
The character of Reacher, he's not a soldier now, he's not a detective. He's someone who has decided to be there in the time of need for people who are in trouble. And in that sense, he's closer to a modern version of a samurai, or maybe even a Ronin.
I hate to say that I got my butt whooped, but Reacher kind of laid a beat down on him. It was a really cool scene that we got to shoot because, I mean, first of all, you know, doing a stunt scene with Tom Cruise. I mean, the man is well known for his stunts, but it was also a bit of a pressure on the day because it was one of my very first days up. So, you know, day one, hey, get in the cell, fight Tom. You know, you don't get a chance to shake off the rust or nothing. You just, you go full force.
And action.
It was awesome because the way we shot the scene, as you'll see, it's fast-paced, but it's quite intricate with the way he takes me out. You know, he takes my jacket, takes my hat, and he does it so smooth.
I mean, that was Wade just saying, you know, how quickly could one accomplish that? And he came up with the idea that with a punch and a pull, one could put one arm into the sleeve and then whirl around. These guys who do that, they are storytellers, they are artists themselves, the great ones. And that's what you get when you hire the best.
Okay, throw it at me. Sorry, yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. Don't look at Tom. Right? Yes. Now we're here. Now I'm up higher. That's because it was more up like this. Yes. Okay. Okay. Yep. Go to your fist.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
And I'll just take it to the temple. Copy that.
All right, here we go.
Common 6 mark.
And action.
Yeah. These men are going to transfer you.
Wait, which these men? Who are you?
How are you? These men are here to kill you.
What?
I think we're going to see a side of Kobe that has never been seen before. I do believe this is going to be a breakout role for her. I've seen her body transform into this buff physique woman. And Her energy in the action sequences and her physical fighting is going to surprise everybody.
Soldier! You know who I am.
Yes, ma'am.
I need you to stand down.
I've been relieved of command, ma'am.
I'm being held here without cause. It's your right to countermand an illegal order.
I don't know if I can do that, ma'am.
This is a tough woman. I'm playing a very tough woman. And I know that in this movie, we've made her a graduate of the Ranger School. And now, when we were shooting this film, there weren't any women who had graduated from Ranger School yet. And now there's been 2. And so we were able to put that on my uniforms, which was like a really exciting thing.
Bang!
I thought about that during all that training, and I thought about that in a sad way where I'm working with stunts for 2 hours. I'm like, I wouldn't last in Ranger School for a day.
I cannot tell you how hard Patrick and Kobe and Tom trained together.
Kobe and I have to be in stellar physical shape for the amount of physical work that we have to do. So we all have personal trainers that are working us out many times a week. We have physio that are making sure that our bodies aren't aching and that are functioning properly. We're on a specific and very strict meal plan that allots us only a certain amount of calories a day, is barren of simple sugars, is basically a paleo diet. And then we had intense stunt training for about a month and a half before we even, shot any stunt sequence.
How fast do you want us to go across?
That's good.
That's good.
That's good.
It was fun because he'd never done film fighting before, and you had to develop a whole style. I've made several movies with Wade, and I work with these guys also because I've been doing it for so many years. I do oversee all the training and tone of the films.
Okay, yeah, okay. Right. All the way back in here, okay.
And I spend as much time as possible preparing, to prepare the actors for what's going to come. So that not just on the day, you have someone step in, but there's a tremendous amount of training that goes into it. That's also the fun. You're learning new skills. You're working with them, and they're working with me.
Come around there for a second there. Right here. Go. See the first strike.
They took me through the basics. They trained me like they would a fighter, a boxer. There was a lot of repetition. There was just getting specific on moves, how to hold yourself, how to connect your body with your hits, and always having a level of intensity, to have an intent with what you're doing, not just doing the moves because this is how you do it. It was thinking about your character throughout the training, just where your character would be emotionally, mentally, while you were training. It was surprising, actually, what a difference that made.
Cut. Okay. So. Okay. Ladies, are you rolling?
I am.
Tom, you set?
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Tom Cruise. Reacher. That was pretty boring. Okay. All right.
I thought it was
You know what?
I know. Shattering with an explosion.
No, what a here. Okay.
And 3, 2, 1, action!
Stay back! Stay back!
Okay. And cut.
Cut. Ready.
One sits at a laptop and writes a fight, you can try to visualize and do the best you can and create scenarios that you're going to write within with the movement.
And 3, 2, 1, go.
It's almost like writing with bodies in space. It's about creating a scene that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Then rather than dialogue, it's expressed in moves and counter moves and punches and counter punches.
Yes.
But you need someone like Wade Eastwood. You need someone like Tom who are so schooled and so skilled and so aware of things that they've done before that they don't want to repeat.
Is that good? One more. Ready? And 3, 2, 1, action.
It's just always kind of working on story and tone. I'm looking at what's the story, what story points do we need to accomplish, and what's the location, and what tone do we want with the fight. I'll go in and I'll work with them on it, and then I'll step back and I'll look at the choreography. Ed will come in, and really the three of us just kind of go back and forth.
What's going to happen is, here's the hit. It's just going to move me like this.
Is that too far away?
No,
That's fine.
perfect.
That's weird.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you can even reach for the next thing.
And reach for that table, it's fine.
One of the things that's most fun about working with Tom is Tom understands the fun the audience has with him not being an infallible Terminator and somebody getting the better of him.
No, stay back.
And in this scene, he definitely loses the fight.
You know, I always go from character. How will these characters move? What's going to be the difference between Hunter and Reacher, Reacher and Turner? How does a character move? How does that reflect in the way that they fight, they run, they behave?
What we really want in a Tom Cruise action movie is a formidable opponent. We want to watch somebody who we really believe could kill Jack Reacher. He gets the version of him that he could have been. He gets the dark side in Hunter. We shot that sequence in 3 days, and on camera, I imagine the whole thing is going to be 90 seconds, maybe 2.5 minutes maximum.
Police, freeze! Drop your weapon!
Wade did, I think, brilliantly also was just the very unique moments that I hadn't seen before, which is the car, you know what I mean, with the salt. You know, Ed came up with the salt thing. He's like, what do you do with the salt? And then Wade, you know, came up with that punch through the window. And that's pure Reacher.
Pictures up. What do you think about eyes in the back of my head? How's it going? How's it going?
Don't. And also on the airplane, you know, dealing with the guy and in the bathroom, coming up with that stuff. And it just evolves from story and tone, you know, that Ed and I talk about.
All you contractors go to the same barber?
Every single actor has different talents. And if it's a small fight or a big fight, it doesn't matter. They're all same intensity.
And I'm gonna do this, right? Yeah. I'm gonna try to pull it off, and then now you got it. Now I know you got it, right? Yeah. And see, now the truth is, I don't even have to move my head. I'm looking right up at you right now, anyway.
Why don't we start with my field reports?
Snap the tendon before it breaks the bone. It takes longer to heal.
Yesterday was the scene where I get killed in the movie. I've been killed in a lot of movies, and sometimes you tend to see the same things, you know, over and over again, but Wade finds ways to be very inventive. It's a very brutal, unexpected, and I think very dramatic scene. It's my last scene in the movie, but might be my favorite.
That means his prints were on it.
Story dictates, you know, what is needed in the character. The character has a very swift and violent approach. And when you say Reacher, he never leaves a weapon in the field. So he's someone who's going to break your leg. Even if you're knocked out, he's going to break your leg because he doesn't want you coming after him. Action! And that's Reacher. He's swift and harsh. It's just something that, you know, with the movie, you want that kind of, that's very satisfying action.
Put some shit up! Shoot me! Shut up! Shut up!
The thing about Reacher is that it's not really a stunt movie. It is very grounded character film, but
Very realistic.
Very realistic, but the fighting is what you want from a film like this. So it's a crime thriller, and the thing about Reacher is that it has a very unique brutality.
But we're not using CG. We're not going beyond. We're doing something that's actually in the spirit of what movies were when they made great crime movies, which is the reality of the characters, the reality of the story is the same reality as the stunts.
We were never supposed to be shooting the rooftops of New Orleans. It was a much different sequence where they stayed on the ground the whole time. And they'd come out of the hotel and ran down the street.
When we got to New Orleans and Tom and I and Ed were walking around the corridor, our minds immediately went to, it's the most cinematic location, this incredible French architecture, these very narrow streets, in this very old and beautiful section of the city. We should get them up on the rooftops with the beautiful New Orleans night sky and fireworks going over their heads. And then we just kept adding, what if there was a parade and thousands of people in the street and climbing up to the rooftops? It became the finale of our movie.
It's like we're inside the city and we're above the city. And at night with these lights, I think, you look at what Oliver's done in terms of the lighting, and I think, our set design, we just got a great crew here.
It's also true that it's often the juxtaposition. There's a parade and it's festive and it's beautiful, but at the same time, above it, there's a very scary thing happening, which is the chase and is the climax of the movie.
Starts obviously with the director. Ed, has a vision, and he gives you the sort of scope to work in it. He says, this is what I want out of the scene, and then I just look at ways to try and build tension and keep within the story.
I'm really the only one who applauds. I think any of us could do that.
Shoot me and I let go! Put the gun down.
Put it down, Jack. I'm gonna put the gun down, Jack, okay?
Cut.
Roll sound.
Tom, you started almost your forehead like you've hit the ground and you're coming up from it. Ready?
Yep.
Press into the ground and action.
What was really interesting is Wade created a very specific and thoughtful fight sequence that would be great on its own. I was thinking, oh, this needs to go fast, 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 and then I die, and then, he kills me, and I get, thrown to the edge of this building. And Tom's impulse was to actually let everything slow down, to raise more suspense for the audience, to ask more questions, to really make it feel like, we know Jack Reacher's gonna win, and he even said this, but we really want to feel the danger. We want to feel like that he could possibly lose.
It's a lot of fun, and I'm very fortunate to produce both the Mission Impossible movies and the Jack Reacher movies, because we're constantly smiling on set and talking about the difference between Ethan and Reacher. And it's not that hard to define. Reacher is much more brutal. Reacher is much more human. Jack Reacher wants to end a fight quickly. There's a great quote that Reacher has from the novels that Tom loves, which is, take your revenge first. Don't wait for the other guy to hit you. Hit him first, put him down, move on.
You look at me.
What am I supposed to say? Oh, right. That's
right here.
Come on,
guys.
Here.
You should change that last line.
Dude, you just found the villain. That's a wrap!
And so did the hunter.
All right, well, let me just go first. Let me just say that for some of us, we've done this many, many, many times and been in this moment many, many times, and for some of us, it's our first time. It's never easy, and it's always bittersweet, because we've had real times together. I think the thing that that I've learned, if I've learned anything, I don't remember the movies at all, but I do remember the people that I've worked with. It's a privilege to have been together. To us.
I can't really add to that other than just to briefly thank you for your professionalism, the best at your craft. Thank you for your spirit, for having fun, for your incredibly hard work. But most of all, thank you for making me look good.
I love movies. I love making movies. And it's the spirit that we all have together in doing this. And when you see that final product, I know it's not just me. It's all of us together. And I feel so privileged to work with Ed. This is our second one together, and I look forward to many more. You are a beautiful filmmaker, really an incredible storyteller, and I love your direction. This cast that we have here, I greatly admire all of you all and appreciate the team effort every single day. It was always the laughs and when we needed it, and the focus when we needed it. And Granger, thank you. I don't know how many we've made. I've lost count. But really outstanding. And all of you all. I can't, just every single day, I really appreciate it, and I hope you know that. I hope I hope you really know how much I appreciate it, and thank you. Very, very special. Here's to you. All the people that I work with, they think the same way I do, which is like, whatever it takes. It's not you can't do it, it's how can we do it? And that's the people I want to be around, who can create and can make things happen, are very productive. I make a lot of movies. I go to every single department. I'm working with all of them, and they know me, and I know them. And I'm really proud of what we've accomplished together on this.
I'm a photographer. I'm not a landscape photographer, a portrait photographer, wedding photographer. Yes, I am, because I do all those things. But I love photography, and I love taking pictures that please me and please others.
David James, I just love his eye. You see that he's someone who understands how important it is, the still images on set. And to sell a movie, that's what I'm looking for. What image is going to encapsulate for an audience our story? I want to surround myself with the most talented people I possibly can that I enjoy and I respect. And David James is someone who is like that. He's just a beautiful photographer. And it is a skill, it is an art to be able to get that photo that is actually, he's got to understand the story that we're trying to tell, understand a moment, and also what's going to help sell that moment. Or when you look at it, you go, that's the movie.
The one thing you have to remember on the set, your ego stays outside. Right? I wear black on sets because I don't want to say, here I am. I want to meld in the background. I'm there to make sure that I don't become a distraction for the actor. I've worked with actors who came to me and said, how do you get all these pictures? I didn't even know you were there. That's music to my ears. I've read every book. I can't put them down. When I first saw that Tom was going to do it, I thought, hang on, Reacher's a huge military guy. Tom fills that role so beautifully because it's in here. Tom is Jack Reacher. He's got it. I did Last Samurai with Ed and Love and Other Drugs with him. I love Ed. Ed has a sense of humor. To be around him on the set, he's very, very confident in what he's doing. You work sometimes with directors who are not confident, and it shows. He knows where to put the camera. He knows what the scene should be. He knows what the performances should be. Tom respects that. I respect that. The whole crew respects that. Every time I've worked with him, Tom, if he's going to do a big action scene, he says, David, is David here? He's so into it, and he's so into getting those results. I did the latter half of Night and Day, and on the day that we wrapped, Tom and I were walking off the beach in Jamaica together, And he stopped. He said, "David, I'm going to do another Mission Impossible, and I would love it if you would do it with me." And I said, "I'd be delighted to." We get to Dubai, and we're standing there the first day of climbing rehearsals, and we look up. He said, "I know where you are." I said, "Yeah, we've got to do that. It's the tallest building in the world. You can't sit higher on this planet on a man-made structure than that." You had to go up 250 floors in elevators. 250, I mean, that's huge. And then he had to climb 200 feet inside this grey tube. No air conditioning. So bless him, he did the whole thing. It was awesome.
Let's look at Chai over there. Okay, just look. Okay, that's 50. That's basically what your eye would see when you're looking at it, okay?
We were teaching Danica the difference between optics, so that she had an idea when they're saying, okay, we're putting 135mm lens on this. So she had an idea what that meant. He knows what it means, you know, and he knows what the best lenses are for him. I mean, most good actors do.
See how that changes? Yeah. Okay, it tells a different story, doesn't it? Okay.
They know the impact an optical has. So what we were trying to teach Danica is how that is the difference in a wide angle and, you know, and also how getting her sharp and the longer lens will throw the background well out, which makes her more powerful. A little photo lesson in lenses. I brought my daughter on Star Wars Force Awakens as my assistant stroke coordinator. And she was awesome in that, in organizing and getting talent to spots. And then she would be in photo sessions with me, learning how to light. I then took her onto the latter half of the last mission. So we went on that together, and I let her shoot a few pictures. And then when Jack Reacher, Never Go Back, came up, I said to the producers, and they said, look, I want to bring her, we've got to train new young people. I'm getting older, and there's no training program for kids anymore. So now she can be a fully fledged still photographer. A lot of the great photographs in the kitchen fight stuff are hers, because she has that eye in that moment. And it's predicting that moment. So you watch a rehearsal and you know on a fight, there's two places you want to photograph the fist, here or there. It's just that timing, that anticipation of the moment. You know, when the fist is here, pulling back, you want back. It's up to the photographer to know what the thing looks like. He's there, he's on the spot, he knows what it looks like. New Orleans is a magical place. I'll never go back. I wandered the streets and I shot pictures. Just different shots, you know, people, architecture. The great thing about shooting that is it is New Orleans. A lot of movies you go on and they will design a scene and build the sets and do this, and it's kind of phony, but this was real. And every night we shot that parade, it was real, and the people were having a blast. They were loving it. And there's so much visual to shoot. That's the beauty of being a still photographer. You don't have to stand by where the camera is. You don't have to shoot the same lens they're shooting. You can shoot your own visual interpretation. You're still the same scene, but I would look for angles where you could get Tom and then there's something interesting, out of focus, interesting going on behind him. That's that behind the scenes thing, just those moments. And it also shows that fantastic rapport between those actors. They became like a little family, you know, and they looked out for Danica and they guided her. Tom and I have this discussion all the time that he likes being Tom Cruise, I like being David James. Right? We're both happy in our skin. Ever since the Birds shot, we've become like brothers. You know, the guy really enjoys being who he is. And I enjoy photographing it and being part of it. I think Tom loves the whole aspect of making a film, of being there on the set, of actually working with all these people and all that equipment and making that movie.
Did you know that this is David James's birthday today?
Yeah!
Whoa! I just want to say, It's his 75th birthday. Wow.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear David. Happy birthday to you.
David, he's just the best that I've ever worked with.
I want to do, as long as I can, I want to keep doing with him. It's living a dream.